Much to our relief, we discovered we did not need to consider another's conception of God. Our own conception, however inadequate, was sufficient to make the approach and to effect a contact with Him. So you can see that what we learned in Bill's story is now being repeated and expanded upon. So we can choose our own conception, and it's only necessary that we be willing to believe. As soon as we admitted the possible existence of a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe underlying the totality of things, we began to be possessed of a new sense of power and direction, provided we took other simple steps. Please understand that the Big Book is not saying it would be nice, oh golly gee whiz, if you just sort of took these suggested steps. It says, and it's telling us flat out, that our recovery is conditioned upon our willingness to take these other simple steps. Welcome to all of you. This is a sponsorship workshop, and you're welcome to be here. We're talking about the second step today, how to teach the second step. Now, at the bottom of page 46, Tom, can you get books for them?
Oh, yeah. Are they sitting up?
Are there any left?
I have this. I have this. I have one in my car.
Oh, you don't have it.
Well, I'll go to
We're on page 46, guys.
Okay, thanks.
At the bottom of the page. Now, here's a very, very interesting and important sentence. 5 lines up from the bottom. We found that God does not make too hard terms with those who seek Him. Now let's parse that sentence, and what do we find? That God is not going to demand of us more than we are able to do if we're actively seeking Him. Now, if you take that phrase and move it forward to chapter 5, correlate it with the 3 pertinent ideas. That we're alcoholic and can't manage our own lives. No human power is going to relieve us of our alcoholism, but God can and will if we what? If we seek Him. So you see now how every part of the Big Book correlates with every other part. And it's internally consistent every way. This next sentence is very important too. To us, the realm of spirit is broad, roomy, all-inclusive, never exclusive or forbidding to those who earnestly seek. It is open, we believe, to all men. And this runs directly against some of the things that we do these days, where we have made ourselves exclusive in some of our meetings. We must not do that. Where we're seeking God and where we're teaching the steps and how to work the steps, that should be open to everybody. Never inclusive. Always inclusive, never exclusive. Going to the top of page 47, when therefore we speak to you of God, we mean your own conception of God. This applies too to other spiritual expressions which you find in this book. Now, that sentence is very important, because remember that if we're saying to the new person, you choose your own conception of God, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of spiritual matters. The Big Book writes about them, and we're going to be teaching them. But the book is still saying you may choose your own conception of these spiritual matters. What we require, if we're going to help you, is that you do the work. Because as you do the work, you are going to recognize certain results within yourself. Among other things, you will acquire a high degree of faith. And when the Big Book talks about entering the world of the Spirit or becoming God conscious, you can apply your own conception of those spiritual principles. Do not let any prejudice you may have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this is all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood Him. Afterward, we found ourselves accepting many things which then seemed entirely out of reach. That was growth. But if we wished to grow, we had to begin somewhere. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. Now, the second paragraph on 47 encapsulates all of these various concepts that we've been talking about and the Big Book's been talking about. We needed to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? Remember on the page before, it was clear that this power, capitalized power, is God. That there is a God, a power greater than myself. As soon as a man can say that he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon this simple cornerstone a wonderfully effective spiritual structure may be built. Now, you may be asking yourself, if I'm working with somebody who is new, who is acknowledges themselves as an atheist or agnostic, especially agnostic, how do we go about convincing them that they ought to be willing to believe? Well, the Big Book does a pretty good job. Yes, Sharon?
Is that where you ask them the questions then? Is that where you would ask them the questions? I mean,
Not yet.
They're a little funky about it, right?
Not yet, we don't.
If they're if they're new and you want to take them through the first steps and they're all full of fear, like they had to do with me, would you suggest that they, write down their fears and stuff like that?
Well, sure, because anytime you get your sponsee to start writing or praying or getting to meetings, talking to people in recovery, these are all essentials. And because remember that the second step ultimately is a gift from God. Because it is a belief that comes. But somewhere along the line it has to start. And the starting point is the willingness to believe. And so if you have someone that you're working with who is not even willing to believe there just might be a power out there, the solution to that, since we can almost never talk people into things like that, is to ask them to pray. And that means they can pray to Him with may concern. Or God, if you're there. The God of my misunderstanding. It doesn't matter. Because the moment that we begin to open the door just a little bit, God comes flowing in. That's what it's telling us here. This may be the first place where you're going to be instructing your sponsee to pray for willingness. Now, willingness becomes an issue in many of the other steps. For example, in the sixth step, if we're not willing to have God remove our defects, we pray for the willingness till it comes. In the eighth step, if we're not willing to make amends, we pray for the willingness till it comes. And when we're seeking to forgive the wrongs that have been done us, of course we pray for the willingness to forgive. And on and on. So this is the first place where we're going to be able to begin to instruct them in the method of finding willingness, which is to ask for it. Ask God for it. If they do, it comes. The test, however, is the question you alluded to. Do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe, that there is a power greater than myself? And when we're sponsoring somebody, that's the question we ask them. And if that willingness is not there, or the belief is not there, we ask them to begin to pray, asking for the willingness. All right.
Susie, where did you find that question? Is that
Page 47.
page 47?
Second full paragraph, right in the middle of the page.
Ah, okay, thanks.
All right?
Okay.
Now then, a good part of the balance of chapter 4 has to do with the comparing the human solutions or the scientific solutions or reason, the rule of reason, with with faith and serenity and seeking God. And it pulls out a lot of different examples of how we have been trying to live our lives based upon reason and science and mathematics and all of the human stuff. Let's take a look on page 48, for example. Right top of the page, second line. Many of us have been so touchy that even casual reference to spiritual things has made us bristle with antagonism. This sort of thinking had to be abandoned. Though some of us resisted, we found no great difficulty in casting aside such feelings. And there could be a word "because" in here. Faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon became as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. In this respect, alcohol was a great persuader. It finally beat us into a state of reasonableness. Sometimes this was a tedious process. We hope no one else will be prejudiced for as long as some of us were. The reader may still ask why he should believe in a power greater than himself. We think there are good reasons. Let's look at some of them. And then it goes into the question of all of these different scientific and modern stuff, and all stuff about electricity and the atom and so on, and that we look for results, but we have developed a kind of faith in that these things will work, and that they've always worked and they always will work. Down at the bottom of the page, the prosaic steel girder is a mass of electrons whirling around each other at incredible speed. These tiny bodies are governed by precise laws, and these laws hold true throughout the material world. Science tells us so. We have no reason to doubt it. When, however, the perfectly logical assumption is suggested that underneath the material world and life as we see it, there is an all-powerful, guiding, creative intelligence, right there our perverse streak comes to the surface, and we laboriously set out to convince ourselves it isn't so. We read wordy books and indulge in windy arguments, thinking we believe this universe needs no God to explain it. Were our contentions true, it would follow that life originated out of nothing, means nothing, and proceeds nowhere. Now this poses, of course, the dilemma which is always faced by those of no faith. I can't imagine that it would be anything but extremely difficult to be a true practicing atheist, in spite of all the evidence to the contrary which surrounds us, to continue to deny the existence of God. I can't imagine it would have to be extremely difficult. We'd have to be on our toes all the time, not to slip up. On the middle of page 49, instead of regarding ourselves as intelligent agents, spearheads of God's ever-advancing creation, we agnostics and atheists chose to believe that human intelligence was the last word, the alpha and the omega, the beginning and end of all. Rather vain of us, wasn't it? And later in chapter 5, it tells us that we're going to have to quit playing God. It tells us that the Jim idea didn't work, the God idea did. I believed that I was very close to being general manager of the universe. And most definitely I had an answer for everything that was out there, and if they would only listen to me, this would be a great place to live. I have a friend in the program who finally got over it, but when he first came in, he said, if I'm not God, there is no God. You know. So we have all sorts and varieties of people coming in that door. You got to understand, as a sponsor, that most of the denial of God comes directly out of fear. You can say, well, it's prejudice, but prejudice is always a function of fear. Generally speaking, the person denying God or being really doubtful is scared to death that they're going to have to face the God of their childhood. And they don't want to do that, and they're going to try to run and avoid as much as they can. Of course, they've been running and avoiding in many aspects of their lives anyway. Let's go on down to page 50. Now we got an interesting example of Bill's writing here. Because this is inspired writing, there are many what we could otherwise call non sequiturs. There are paragraphs and sentences. Paragraphs seem to be completely out of place. Probably the prime example is paragraph at the top of page 63, which is supposedly in the third step, but really refers to the same things as the promises after the ninth step. But let's take a look here. Page 50. Middle paragraph. That's the third paragraph. On one proposition, however, these men and women are strikingly agreed. Every one of them has gained access to and believes in a power greater than himself. This power has in each case accomplished the miraculous, the humanly impossible. As a celebrated American statesman put it, let's look at the record. And any time you're at loss for words about the program or the 12 steps or the efficacy thereof, just remember that 66 years ago there was no hope for any of us. When I came in 1964, there were less than 200,000 members. Today there are probably 5 million. Do you suppose that any of this would have happened if these steps didn't work? I think the answer to that is so obvious. Going on, here are thousands of men and women, worldly indeed. They flatly declare that since they have come to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, and to do certain simple things, there has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, they found that a new power, peace, happiness, and sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled, by the way, notice the word requirements. The Big Book uses the word suggestion not to mean the steps, that each step is a suggested step, but that it is suggested you work the steps. Just like the jump master suggests you pull a ripcord when you bail out of an airplane. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Once confused and baffled by the seeming futility of existence, they show the underlying reasons why they were making heavy going of life. Now this is talking, of course, about the stories in the back of the book. And, of course, Bill's story and Fred's story and Jim's story in the book, in the first 164 pages. Five lines down on page 51. When many hundreds of people are able to say that the consciousness of the presence of God is today the most important fact of their lives, they present a powerful reason why one should have faith. And then it goes on to detail many of the scientific and mechanical breakthroughs. Now we're going to skip over a little bit, and then we're going to skip over to page 54, and then we'll go back to 53, because on 53 we find the step and how we take the step. So let's see what it says on page 54. Imagine life without faith. Were nothing left but pure reason, it wouldn't be life. But we believed in life, of course we did. We could not prove life in the sense that you can prove a straight line is the shortest distance between 2 points, yet there it was. Could we still say the whole thing was nothing but a mass of electrons, created out of nothing, meaning nothing, whirling on to a destiny of nothingness? Of course we couldn't. The electrons themselves seem more intelligent than that, at least so the chemist said. Hence we saw that reason isn't everything. Neither is reason, as most of us use it, entirely dependable, though it emanate from our best minds. What about the people who proved that man couldn't fly? Now let's go back to page 53. The big book here is talking about reason. The last full paragraph on page 53. Arrived at this point, we were squarely confronted with the question of faith. We could duck the issue. Some of us had already walked over the bridge of reason toward the desired shore of faith. The outlines and the promise of new land had brought luster to tired eyes and fresh courage to flagging spirits. Friendly hands had reached out in welcome. We were grateful that reason had brought us so far. But somehow we couldn't quite step ashore. Perhaps we had been leaning too heavily on reason that last mile, and we did not like to lose our support. Now, I'd like to visualize it this way. Over here, we have what we could call the land of chaos. And over here, we have the land of faith. And in between, we want to see this bridge of reason. Now, the person who's relying upon reason is going to be walking across the bridge of reason, trying to figure everything out as they go along, making it all make sense. Yes, 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 well, that's true, yes, well. But suddenly, they get over here, and the land of faith is here, and the bridge of reason does not extend all the way. They find that they can't get that last part. And yet, they look down into the new land of faith, and what do they see? They see people there with their arms out saying, here we are, come on. How are they going to get from the end of the bridge of reason to the new land of faith? The leap of faith. And guess what? All those friendly arms are there, and they'll be caught. They'll be welcomed. And that first leap of faith is the one that begins to turn the tables. And so we learn, if only through that experience, that we cannot depend upon reason. We can depend upon reason only insofar as it will aid us in dealing with the problems of the world as they are enunciated by human beings. But God's principles are not amenable to the rule of reason. They are paradoxes. So we have to learn as we go through the steps to deal with paradox. It's difficult. It doesn't make any sense that I have to give up everything in order to get anything. It doesn't make any sense that if I want something too much, I'll never get it, or if I do, it'll turn to ashes in my mouth. It doesn't make any sense that if I want to have a relationship on a healthy basis with somebody, I have to be willing to let them go. It doesn't make any sense that I have to surrender to win. But until I give up absolutely, which means until I have conceded unconditional surrender, that I can gain no power. But God's power is going to only flow into the total vacuum which I've created by giving up all pretenses of power in my own. And these things don't make any reasonable sense. They don't compute. On the other hand, they happen to be the only reality that's worth having. We found out recently through quantum mechanics, quantum physics, that all of the realities we thought out there, the immutable laws of science and physics, were probably wrong. The minute the scientists began to see the electron change shape weight, mass, and direction, and also acceleration or deceleration, simply because they observed it. They had to change a whole lot of their thinking. We find people now in the scientific world who are finally coming to realize that there just may be some parallel universes out there. It doesn't mean they're there, but this is what the data begins to suggest. Much of what we had taken to be immutable laws suddenly turn out to not be immutable at all. The big book here talks about a straight line being the shortest distance between 2 points. What if, as they now suspect, the universe is the inside of a globe? The shortest distance between 2 points is not going to be a straight line drawn along the inside of the globe, which is what we've been trying to do. It may very well be that we can step off our porch into the next world. Who knows? And so we're going to be dealing here, as we recover, in the immutable laws of God, as they are expressed as principles in our 12 steps. And that makes it pretty comforting. Now then, let's look at the solution. This is the test of the second step. Page 53, right in the middle of the page. 5 little lines. When we became alcoholics, which really means when we finally confessed our alcoholism, we finally had received the gift of concession to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis we could not postpone or evade, this is the first place in the big book which it begins to reveal to us the fact that our problems of our own making. When we get into the 5th chapter, it's going to nail us big time on that. We got to quit blaming anyone else, anything else, accidents of birth, any of the psychobabble stuff that we've been treated to over the years. All the excuses we've been given for our crapped out behavior, we've got to put them aside and accept the responsibility for what has happened to us. Self-imposed crisis. We could not postpone or evade. This is the most perfect definition of reaching bottom in the big book. Once this has happened, we had to fearlessly face the proposition that either God is everything or else He is nothing. God either is or He isn't. What was our choice to be? Now here's the way you do it with your sponsee. God either is everything or He's nothing. What's your answer? God's everything. God either is or He is not. What's your answer? God is. Well, if God is and God is everything, do you have any doubt whatsoever He can restore you to sanity? And the answer to that has to be, of course I can't. Yes.
If I could ask you something about that's always kind of bothered me, that sentence. Either God is everything or He's nothing. When I first read that, it seemed to me like it was in conflict with God as we understood Him. Because all of a sudden it's saying like God is everything, like God is omnipotent, and God is this and God is that, and so it's no longer God as I understand Him. Can you?
Well, I can't imagine anyone having a God upon which they put limitations in terms of power or knowledge. What are you going, unless you are a heathen and you are pantheistic and you split God up into 100 different gods and goddesses. But if you take the total of all of those and add it up, it's still omnipotence and omniscience. Because I don't know that the human mind can conceive of a God which is just sitting around there not able to do anything. I mean, I don't suppose that would be a God, would it? I don't know. Maybe there are people out there whose conception of God is very limited. In which case, this sentence would not be apropos. This question. And they would have to answer, no, I don't think God is everything. You do believe that there is a God, yes?
Now, what happens when they say that?
Damned if I know. Never faced that problem. Yes, ma'am.
Can I share just briefly what that means to me, because I use that.
Sure, please.
You're on tape.
That's fine. Where it says everything or nothing. To me, I had to definitely change the God from my childhood that was a punishing, horrible, at the guilt and shame God that I cannot use today to stay sober. And the God of my understanding. For me today, I worship one God, the God of light and love, which is the God of my understanding, which is all-powerful, omnipotent, which is everything. God to me is everything and loves me unconditionally. The God of my childhood did not. When I abandoned myself as a small child and turned into a wild cat, I abandoned myself, I abandoned God. Now I'm back to myself and to God, where I separated. Okay, I don't want to make this long. I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. So to me, I'm across from my toilet in my home, I have God first. I did earth first. Well, I changed it. It's God first, which is I'm part of the universe. I am part of God. I am part of nature. It's all one thing to me. AA saved my life. I'm Julie. I'm a great recovery alcoholic. So to me, yeah, God is everything or nothing. It's real simple. It's black and white. It's very simple. So that's my experience.
Good, thank you. Well, this dilemma, if it is one, is certainly emphasized in the 5th chapter, isn't it? Where there is one who has all power. That one is God, and you find out. So if this is going to do violence to somebody's own conception of God, I'm assuming that they're going to have to make some kind of accommodation themselves. I've never come up against that problem, because you see, choosing your own conception of God is the starting point. It is not where we end up. It's where we start. And the conception that we have of God is always going to be something which relates to our experience with God, because otherwise we have no way to describe God. The God of my understanding is the God I've experienced. If you ask me to describe God to you, that's the only way I know how to do it, because I've experienced God working in my life for 37 years, and I've got pretty strong ideas about what God is, but it all relates to the experience I've had of God. That's where faith has come from. I have implicit faith in God because I know from experience that I can. I don't know if that answers your question. And it's a very astute question. But I've never run into the problem, so I can't help you as a sponsor to tell you what to do. I don't think you'll ever have that happen. And another reason it probably won't happen is that this second step is really a gift. This coming to believe is a gift that we receive because we've been doing the work. Okay?
Thank you.
Good to see you, honey. It's been about 13 years since you...
What a terrific.
We have fun in this place.
Yeah, it's ever so useful.
I think I have about 3 weeks now.
Good. That's 3 weeks of miracle, son. Don't you forget it. We're just getting started. How many years you got now, Clarence? 12?
No, 8.
8
Going on 9.
Going on 9.
I'm
Danny, you're what? 8 years sober? 9? 4? Oh, I thought you had more time than that. You sure act like it. Frank, you're 2 years sober now.
I'll have 2 years in April.
What a boy.
Cool.
There's some sobriety in here. Counselor, how you doing? I've been wandering around your wonderful Broward courts the last 3 days. Tell you what, though, we're 3 out of 3. Not too bad.
That's good.
Yeah.
Which judge is going in Broward?
We figured that out the other day, didn't we?
Well, that was in Delray.
Well, no, that's right. It was, well, that was Palm Beach Court,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yesterday was Russo.
Oh,
Or, no, Luzo.
Luzo.
Luzo, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's still not being domestic, but he's okay.
Yeah, we're going back in and take testimony Tuesday. The husband is the worst kind of stinking rotten liar. I'm gonna blow him out of the water.
That's good. Is it a custody matter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Damn near a kidnapping.
When I was a baby, I was kidnapped.
Huh?
I was kidnapped when I was a baby.
Were you? God, that
Dad
explains
came, got
that.
me, took me to his hometown.
That explains everything, Danny. What do you think, Frank? Everything all right?
Yeah, everything's actually pretty good. Real good. The obsession has been removed, you know, and I was starting to really start to believe that I have to have a little more faith in the obsession has been removed, and whenever I have a thought, I know it's a thought, and I pray that it's just a thought, not an obsession.
Yep.
And, you know, and I keep trying to convince myself that if I put some of these principles into effect in some of the other things in my life, that maybe, you know, you see, I have a hard time because I really, I'm trying to keep both hands in this program, and I know that this program, these principles can work in other areas, but it seems like I've got such a grip on this program, and I'm almost afraid that, you know, to say, okay, well, I've got this now, really good, so
Yeah.
let me see if I can't just grab onto this and apply these principles into this area of my life, you know, because I'm confident it would work. You know, if I don't have to use drugs and alcohol and get in trouble, you know, everything else should be easy. It should be. You know.
There's no doubt they'll work in every aspect of your life. That's what it says in the 12th step, isn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I believe it. I believe it, but I mean, it's just,
Every time you do that and it works, your faith will grow. And it's just another place where you take leaps of faith.
Getting ready? I know, what's the biggest one so far this year?
Johnny, how you doing, babe?
I'm doing good, man.
You working your steps now?
I mean, if you mean by writing down?
Most of the time, you.
I
No,
haven't
I haven't
tried
written
it.
down yet.
Okay.
I haven't tried to get any snook for a long time. It's a bass fish. I used to go down this bridge and catch little ones.
You know why you need to write them down?
Not exactly, to tell you the truth. Well, they told me a bunch of things. I don't really believe it though.
Well, when you write them down, they get clear.
That's what they
You got to get them out of your head and down on paper.
Yeah,
Because there's all kinds of stuff running around your head in collision.
yeah.
It clears it up when you start writing it down, doesn't it? Terrence knows. He putzed around with this for a long time.
It takes and dissolve.
I got a bass boat.
Not really much of a writer, you know?
Let's dribble it.
Today's way.
It doesn't matter. Nobody has to be able to read it but you.
17 foot.
I can't even read my own handwriting. When I write, I can't even read it.
Nothing in there, just the stringers. I'm gonna work on that.
I got a nice one.
I've done, I've worked with people whose fourth step was 3 pages long. That was all he could do.
Yeah, 90.
Spell things
The
phonetically.
max on this is 50.
Doesn't matter. You,
My next boat's
if you
gonna be
do
Ranger, I think.
the very, very best that you can do, it's always gonna be enough.
Storm.
At the end of that.
Yep. It doesn't, as long as you're not lying to yourself
If I'm gonna
and using it as an
spend
excuse,
$36,000
if it's the
on
best you
Ranger,
can do, it'll work.
I'd rather get a storm for 36.
So you quit worrying about,
Yeah, I'd rather have a storm.
you know, what is, how it's gonna come out.
I'd rather have the storm. They look good too.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Huh?
Couldn't hear you.
I said, as long as you do the very best that you can do, and you're not giving yourself excuses. You know, I did the best I could. You hear that all the time. It's a bunch of crap.
Once I get this thing worn, my kids.
If you know that this is the very best that you can do, it'll be sufficient.
As pertaining to the writing it down?
Yep.
Yeah, it's fun though.
Well, here we go.
Next one. I want it to plane up and down.
What's that?
Oh, your jack plate.
Do you see the back of this?
How are
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, you want to look.
I'm gonna
I
put a
want
little
it this
slip.
way.
I'm going to make a major objection at the next business.
I was thinking.
Yeah, jack plate. Yeah, you lift it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
hydraulics.
think your mind worked.
I want it this way.
Yeah, do breaks it
Still
up.
trying to help this kid.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that way you can get into, you don't
I think
have
he
to
had,
tilt
like,
the motor to get through.
Took
You
him
just
to a meeting the other
Lift-
night. I
raise
think
it
he
up,
has
right.
24 hours
You
of
still can go
36 or
80
something like
miles
that,
an
so
hour.
he doesn't know what to do anymore.
It's frightening. It's just like, where are the,
It's like I just gotta leave him
jackets
alone.
And the goggles.
I don't know
The
how to leave
storm is
people
dead.
alone.
The storm boat is fine.
So what's going on with Darren anyway?
Yeah, those guys, I mean, they're.
Oh, the usual.
Guy was fishing with
Family?
Celtius.
No, he won't get out of that relationship, he
He
said.
Oh.
boat. Yeah. We used to all the time. He used to.
He gets
That's
up.
been going on a long time now.
Yeah,
A
it'll be
year.
Maybe another 3 years.
He
before
gets
get
out for
on.
2 weeks,
But
gets back in.
I can wait.
Then he wonders
He's got
why
one
he's
now.
in fear all the
I
time.
got a nice one now.
It's like total denial. I tell him what to do, he don't listen.
That way I can go 90 miles an hour.
Get there before anybody else.
I don't know that there's any more you can do, Billy, than what you're doing.
Well, that's the trick. If you gotta
I
get
know,
there
there's
like
nothing
4:30 in the morning, get signed up first, get
Yeah.
out first.
Because they do it
As
by
long as you
number.
get out first, you can get your limit before everybody else gets there.
That's true.
Get to your spots.
Here's my soup, guys.
Uh-oh. 2 coffees.
2 coffees, I don't have to, miss a word. I don't wanna miss anything. How about you, friend? This is also good information.
Yeah, Neil, so tape it. Neil, so tape it.
Oh, that's right.
Everybody's saying, where's Dan?
Oh, that's so good. I just feel so enthusiastic to just, yeah, a half hour, I feel like a new person. Isn't that amazing how that happens? You walk in on one person, by the time you get halfway through the meeting, you're a whole different person?
Yeah.
Like that lady said, her better self. I just love how that happens.
Otherwise, you know, do it, whatever you
Jim's good.
He's fantastic, isn't he? He
Tired.
loves this stuff. And he's-
Might-
and the
I
way
might
he
just take a
understands
nap
each
today. I never do
sentence
that,
and
but I
each
might
word.
just.
I gotta remember, I'm sponsoring someone who doesn't believe in God. This is
That's
exactly
nice.
what
That's.
I
It's a
know.
tough one.
It is a tough one, but you know what? He's going over what to do. These tough cases. You sponsor me?
Not yet.
Well, you're getting ready, right?
Getting there.
When the time comes, you'll be armed.
Yeah, hard enough time. Just don't need to leave. It's getting hot.
Good. You know how they do. I quit smoking 21 days ago. I want to smoke.
Thank you, 15.
Do ya? How's it working?
It works.
Yeah?
It works.
It's like
Always
anything
takes
else.
me all right.
You gotta want it? You gotta work?
Yeah.
It's not easy? What?
Okay.
I mean, it's like
That's what I keep forgetting to do. I keep forgetting to ask for help. God, I don't know why. I keep forgetting that part. I wanted someone to know.
Okay, guys, let's get going.
And the pack itself.
I have to stop now. I always hate to stop this workshop here. This is one of my most favorite meetings of the week. Tom, will you make out the envelope, please? I want to remind all of you that we're doing the steps at the 101 Club at 7:30 tonight. We're on the second step there too as well. That's an hour and a half meeting, and then at 9 o'clock we will be doing the traditions. And then at 10 o'clock we have a dance starting. It's going to be every Saturday night we'll be having a dance. And tonight we have live entertainment. We have instrumentalists, and we've got singers.
Dancers?
And we've...
Dancers?
No cantor.
Yeah, strippers.
And we've got a professional DJ, so it's going to be a lot of fun. What the Stairway group has done is to map out an entire evening for those who would like to have something wonderful to do on Saturdays. Yes, ma'am.
Are you having, you say your
Huh?
Saturday night 7:30 thing at the 101, is that like from now until forever, through the holidays, forever and ever, you're gonna have
Yeah,
that?
we don't tend to ever stop. God, but we don't know what God has in mind for us.
Well, if you're doing it through the holidays, every Saturday night?
Sure.
7:30?
Sure,
Okay, thank you.
you bet. Just like this workshop. This workshop
This
doesn't.
thing's going on here, it was no accident we came here, because we've been doing our bridge step prayer all day, we just had one.
Oh, wow.
Our car drove us here.
That always happens if you just let it go. Yeah.
All day.
This is our third go-around. Or is it second? I don't. Second? We take about 35 or 36 weeks. We go through the big book entirely,
I
and
had no
then
idea.
and we go through the steps and how to teach steps, and we go through the traditions, how to teach the tradition.
Awesome.
And then when we get through with that, we start over again.
We've been doing 3 and 11 all day, and the car drove us here.
Yep, that's wonderful. So, also, so you're all invited if you'd like to show up on a Saturday night, and we usually have food and stuff, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Are there any announcements for the good of AA? Anybody need to pick up a chip today? What do you got, 90 days?
Yep.
All right.
Why don't you come and get it? This is Sharon.
It works. Yay.
Sharon is a little miracle. We spent some time down in the Keys with she and her sponsor and I, and she went through 4 or 5 of her steps while she was down there. She did a good job. Anybody have an AA birthday in the month of December? 4 years.
4 years.
Yay, damn.
Yes, ma'am.
What's your name? I'm sorry.
Jim.
Jim?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, this is my birthday month too.
How many
I have
years, Jim?
37 years.
All right. Woo-hoo.
Woo-hoo.
You're old enough to be
Jim,
my
how
dad,
many days
Jim.
did it take you to do the steps?
Huh?
How many days did it take you to do all the steps?
Me?
Yeah,
I was working on my 11th step on the 47th day, but I was slow.
47th day.
You're slow.
The guy from England was over here. I took him through his steps in 6 days.
Which guy from England?
Did you ever meet him? His name was John. He was from London.
Yeah.
Yeah, he only had a short time, so we got it done.
Well, I can do it this time.
Did you say real quick, what do you think about
What is
the
this?
people that
Just
take
her?
4 or 5 years to work 12 steps?
Well, I say they're taking a terrible chance with their lives.
Step 1, step 2.
The real question is, how soon do you want to get well? It does. The time thing is only important in the sense that if you wait and if you're walking around with untreated alcoholism, you're making yourself vulnerable.
Okay.
But if you do the work, you get the promises. And remember, for example, between the third and the fourth step, it says at once, so there's no time limit in there. Between the seventh, or the fifth, and the sixth and seventh steps, there's only 1 hour. So you certainly oughtn't to be 1 hour. Yeah, you certainly ought not to be delayed. These people who talk about 1 step a year, they're crazy. I mean, they're just nuts. Absolutely nuts. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh, 4 years. Oh, you got 4 years this month?
No, I wanted to share something.
Well, you had 4 fingers up.
Oh, no.
All right.
That doesn't
Please
mean-
share something with us.
Oh, you know, can I share a little bit? What is going on? Is this like the news?
we're done.
Can I share?
We got time for you.
Okay. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. My name is Julie.
Hi, Julie.
And my original sobriety date is November 1995. And I came into this room and Maddie grabbed my hands. Maddie, I don't know where she is today, grabbed my hand and said, I'm your sponsor. Her sponsor was Matt, New York Matt, Big Matt. I don't know if anybody remembers him. Anyway, and it took me 4 years to get to my 4th step, but I did not drink. 2 months later, when I was like 2 months sober, my mother, God rest her soul, that was born in 1935, died. And I did not have to drink. I did not drink for 4 years. But then, because it took me 4 years to do my 4th step, I went out. Now I'm 10 months coming back.
Yeah, well, you got the lesson, didn't you?
I got the lesson. And
Atta
guess
girl,
what?
wait.
How it works is how it works, and it's not a Chinese menu.
Well, listen, you can tell anybody who will listen to you,
Thanks for letting
tell
me
them.
share. But so it's really cool for me to be here today.
Welcome home.
Yeah.
Mine was back when I was 21.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being here. Come on.
And it was in this state.
It was a mistake.
Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. So a moment of silence for those who are still suffering. And then we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Please do me a personal favor. We don't sing anything after saying. Thank you. Lord's Prayer. Our
Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Gotta stop that impulse, Flo.
No, I know.